She was mocked the moment she walked into the boardroom. A crisp white shirt, beige wide-leg trousers, an old laptop, and a neat, half-up hairstyle. Enough to turn her into a punchline in a room full of Armani suits and Swiss watches, their eyes sharp as knives. Look at that outfit. Someone must have sent the intern from the events team by mistake. But they were wrong, because the woman they just humiliated was the wife of the man controlling a $100 million investment fund, and he had just decided that not a single dollar would go to anyone who disrespected her. The boardroom at the top of the Sterling Tower gleamed with power, floor-to-ceiling windows framing Manhattan's skyline, a polished mahogany table reflecting the morning sun, and air that smelled faintly of leather and ambition. The Crystalis Group, a titan in luxury real estate, had summoned architects from around the globe to pitch for their crown jewel, a $2 billion eco-resort in the Maldives, meant to redefine sustainable opulence. Executives in tailored suits sat like judges, their cufflinks flashing, their faces set in practiced boredom. Tablets glowed with spreadsheets, and a massive screen loomed behind them, waiting for presentations that would make or break careers. Alina Moore stepped through the double doors, her beige trousers swaying softly, her white shirt crisp but unadorned. Her dark hair was pulled into a neat half-up style, a few strands framing her face, and her hazel eyes held a quiet intensity. She carried a worn leather portfolio of hand-drawn sketches, an old laptop tucked under her arm, and no assistant trailing her. At 34, she was striking, elegant in her simplicity, her beauty like a clear stream cutting through stone. Her eco-resort concept, a small project in Costa Rica, had caught the industry's eye years ago, its understated brilliance whispered about in design circles. That's why Crystalis had invited her, or so she thought. She set her portfolio on the table, her movements deliberate, and offered a calm smile. "Good morning," she said, her voice clear, steady. "I'm Alina Moore, here to present my vision for your resort." The room barely stirred. A man in a charcoal suit, his tie a slash of crimson, glanced up from his phone. Victor Crane, the project director, leaned back, his smirk sharp. "We were expecting a design firm," he said, loud enough to echo. "Not a Pinterest freelancer." Laughter rippled, cold and cutting, as executives exchanged glances. As Alina stood at the table, Victor Crane leaned toward Sylvia Holt, his voice carrying across the room. "She's got some nerve," he said, loud enough for all to hear. "Showing up with a laptop older than my car." The executives laughed, their eyes glinting with scorn as they watched her adjust her sketches. A man in a pinstripe suit tossed a paperclip at her portfolio, grinning as it landed on her drawings. "Decorate that, freelancer," he called, sparking more chuckles. Sylvia smirked, adding, "Maybe she's here to pitch a lemonade stand." Phones clicked, capturing her old laptop, their whispers vicious. "She's embarrassing herself." Alina's fingers paused, but her face remained serene, her calm a stark rebuke to their venom. Alina's expression didn't waver. She opened her portfolio, revealing sketches that danced with light. Curved roofs blending into coral reefs, open-air villas kissed by sea breezes. "My work speaks for itself," she said, sliding a page toward Victor. He didn't touch it, his eyes raking her outfit instead. "You seriously think you can impress international investors dressed like that?" he said. "This isn't some Etsy workshop." Sylvia Holt leaned forward, her diamond earrings flashing as she fixed Alina with a pitying stare. "Honey, this is a global project," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "You can't just waltz in with that." She gestured at Alina's trousers, her tone sparking laughter from the table. "Did you even try to look professional?" A woman nearby snorted. "She's giving garage sale vibes." As others filmed, their phones trained on Alina's flats. Sylvia continued, "We deal with titans, not hobbyists. Save us the slideshow." The room roared, their applause mocking as Alina opened her laptop, her movements steady, her silence a shield against their barrage. Another executive, a woman named Sylvia Holt with diamonds glinting at her ears, sighed dramatically. "Let's not waste time, Victor. She's clearly out of her depth." The room's energy shifted, their disdain now a living thing. A younger executive, Ethan Wells, his watch screaming Rolex, leaned forward, grinning. "What's with the thrift store vibe? Did you borrow that shirt from your mom?" Ethan Wells stood, his Rolex gleaming as he pointed at Alina's sketches, his grin cruel. "What are these? Coloring book pages?" he said, loud enough for the room to hear. "I've seen better art in my kids' preschool." The executives howled, one tossing a crumpled napkin at her portfolio, shouting, "Frame that masterpiece!" Ethan leaned closer, his voice taunting. "You thought you'd impress us? Stick to knitting, sweetheart." Phones flashed, capturing her smudged sketch, their laughter a chorus of disdain. Alina's hand rested on her laptop, her gaze unwavering, but the air grew heavy with their sport, her dignity their target. More chuckles, phones discreetly raised, capturing her plain trousers, her scuffed flats. Alina stood still, her hands resting lightly on her laptop, her gaze sweeping the table. "None of you have reviewed my proposal," she said, her tone even, almost gentle. "You're judging me by my clothes, not my work. You'll regret that." Victor's laugh was sharp, like glass breaking. "Regret? Sweetheart, we don't bet on amateurs." He waved a hand, dismissing her sketches without a glance. "Chrysalis builds empires, not hobby projects. You've got 5 minutes to pitch before we move to real contenders." Sylvia smirked, tapping her pen. "Make it quick. We've got actual architects waiting." The room leaned in, their eyes hungry for her to falter, their whispers a chorus of scorn. Alina nodded, unruffled, and opened her laptop, its screen flickering slightly from age. She began, her voice steady, describing a resort that wove nature into luxury. Solar lattices powering infinity pools, rainwater systems feeding vertical gardens. Her sketches, projected on the screen, were breathtaking, each line a love letter to the earth. But the executives barely looked. Ethan scrolled his phone, Sylvia checked her nails, and Victor interrupted halfway through. "Enough," he said, his tone bored. "This is a fantasy, not a blueprint. We need scale, not arts and crafts." As Alina began her pitch, the executives grew bolder, their voices overlapping in a cruel symphony. A woman in a silk blazer called out, "Is she serious with that laptop? It's practically steam-powered," sparking gasps and giggles. Another man flicked a sugar packet from the coffee tray, watching it land near her sketches. "Add some flair, darling," he jeered as others clapped, shouting, "Back to the suburbs!" Phones recorded every moment, their lenses merciless, framing Alina as a fool. She continued speaking, her voice clear, but their taunts drowned her, a mob reveling in her supposed failure. Alina's eyes flickered briefly, yet her composure held, a quiet fire burning beneath. The rejection was swift, brutal. Sylvia leaned forward, her smile venomous. "You're not what we're looking for, Alina. Maybe try a local community center next time." Ethan chuckled, tossing a pen toward her sketches. "Yeah, stick to decorating lofts. Leave resorts to the pros." The pen rolled across her portfolio, smudging a sketch, and the room laughed, their voices ablade. Alina closed her laptop, her movements precise, and gathered her papers. She didn't argue, didn't flinch. Her eyes met Victor's, calm but piercing, like she saw through him. As she packed, a junior executive named Lila Chen, her suit sharp but her confidence sharper, piped up. "Honestly, it's bold to show up like this," she said, her tone dripping with pity. "But boldness doesn't win contracts. Presentation matters, and you're lacking." Lila Chen crossed her arms, her suit sharp as her tone, addressing Alina like a child. "Look, it's cute you tried," she said, her voice loud, deliberate. "But this is Chrysalis, not a startup incubator. You don't belong here." She gestured at Alina's shirt, sparking snickers. "Next time, maybe hire a stylist, or a real firm." A man shouted, "Or just stay home!" As others laughed, one tossing a straw wrapper at her table. "Recycle that pitch!" he called, the room erupting. Alina gathered her sketches, her movements precise, but their cruelty hung like smoke, their phones broadcasting her shame. She gestured at Alina's outfit, sparking more laughs. A man at the table's end, his tie loosened, called out, "Bet she's here for the free coffee." The room roared, their phones out now, snapping her old laptop, her smudged sketch, framing her as a joke. Alina stood, her portfolio tucked under her arm, and offered a small smile. "Thank you for your time," she said, her voice soft but resonant. She pulled out her phone, her fingers steady, and dialed. The room quieted slightly, curious despite themselves. "Honey," she said, her tone warm but clear. "They didn't like my design. Maybe I should pitch it to Novaland instead." She paused, listening, then nodded. "All right, see you soon." The executives exchanged glances, their smirks faltering. Victor leaned forward, his brow furrowing. "Novaland," he said, his voice sharp. "What's that supposed to mean?" Alina didn't answer, her smile unchanged, as she slipped her phone into her pocket. The boardroom doors swung open, and a man stepped in. Tall, sharply dressed, his black suit tailored to perfection. His dark hair was swept back, his gray eyes scanning the room with a predator's calm. Julian Sterling, the billionaire behind Sterling Ventures, a $100 million fund that moved markets with a whisper. The air shifted, heavy with his presence. Julian's steps were deliberate, crossing the room in silence, ignoring the stunned executives. His eyes found Alina, softening for a moment, and he stopped beside her, his hand brushing hers. The room froze, pens dropping, tablets forgotten. Victor's smirk vanished, his face paling. Sylvia's diamonds seemed dull, her confidence crumbling. Ethan's phone slipped from his hand, clattering on the table. Julian turned to the room, his voice low, resonant, like a storm breaking. "I've decided to invest only in companies that treat my wife with respect," he said. "You just lost your shot." Silence gripped the room, thick and suffocating. Then, chaos. Victor shot to his feet, stammering, "Mr. Sterling, we didn't know—" Sylvia cut in, her voice shrill. "This is a misunderstanding!" Ethan fumbled. "We were just being honest." But Julian didn't look at them. His gaze stayed on Alina, who stood serene, her portfolio still in her arms. She didn't need to speak. Her presence was enough, a quiet force that exposed their cruelty. Phones buzzed, screens lighting up as an email hit every inbox at the table. The subject line burned. Novaland secures exclusive contract with Alina Moore. The message was brief, devastating. Novaland, Chrysalis Group's fiercest rival, had withdrawn from the Maldives bidding war, signing Alina's design as their flagship project. Her sketches, mocked minutes ago, were now the heart of a $2 billion deal, backed by Sterling Ventures' full weight. Every eye turned to Alina, their faces a mix of shock, regret, fear. The boardroom dissolved into panic as Julian's words sank in, Victor's face draining of color, his crimson tie now a noose. Phones buzzed with urgent calls, investors pulling funds, stocks dipping 10% in minutes. Sylvia's diamonds trembled as she stammered, her tablet showing canceled meetings, her network unraveling. Ethan's Rolex seemed garish, his bravado gone as his firm's valuation tanked, whispers of audits circling. The Novaland email burned brighter, Alina's name now a headline, her sketches trending as genius. Chrysalis empire, built on arrogance, cracked under her quiet truth, their legacy stolen by their own hands. She stepped forward, her flat silent on the marble floor, and faced the room. "I didn't come here to beg for a contract," she said, her voice calm, cutting. "I came because I thought I'd be treated with professional respect." She paused, letting the words settle, her hazel eyes sweeping the table. "You chose to judge me by my shirt, not my work. That was your mistake." Victor Crane stood, his crimson tie stark as he waved Alina off, his voice booming. "We're done here," he said, cutting her pitch short. "You're wasting our time with this vision board nonsense." He smirked, gesturing at her portfolio. "Take your doodles and go. We need winners, not dreamers." The room cheered, one executive shouting, "Try a craft fair," as another flicked a coffee stirrer at her laptop, laughing, "Upgrade that relic." Phones zoomed in, their mockery live on internal chats, labeling her a flop. Alina closed her portfolio, her face calm, but their scorn was a blade, slicing deeper with every word. She turned, her portfolio under her arm, and walked toward the doors, Julian at her side, his hand steady on her back. The executives scrambled, their voices overlapping. Victor called after her, "Alina, let's talk this through." Sylvia's heels clicked as she stood. "We can reconsider." But Alina didn't pause, didn't look back. The doors closed behind her, the sound final, like a gavel falling. The boardroom was left in disarray, their empire teetering. Chrysalis stock plummeted within hours, headlines screaming, "Blunder costs Chrysalis 2B Ballard Resort." By evening, the executives faced their reckoning. Victor's board ousted him, his name blacklisted in real estate circles, his smug grin a memory. Sylvia's firm dropped her, clients citing toxic judgment, her diamonds pawned by month's end. Lila's startup pitch failed, investors shunning her after viral clips of her taunts. Ethan's hedge fund collapsed, his Rolex sold to cover debts. Hashtag Ethan erased trending globally. Their cruelty to Alina, once a fleeting thrill, became their undoing. Each name tied to her triumph, her vision now a beacon for Novaland's rise. Investors pulled out, board members resigned, and the Maldives project, once their legacy, became Novaland's triumph. Alina and Julian stepped into the elevator, the city sprawling below them. He looked at her, his voice a whisper. "You okay?" She smiled, her eyes catching the light. "Always." They didn't need to say more. Their bond, quiet but unbreakable, spoke louder than any deal. As the elevator descended, the world shifted, Crystalis's fall echoing, Alina's vision rising, her truth a beacon no one could ignore. If this story made you feel something, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more.